first, President Trump is threatening Iran with, quote, economic warfare as peace talks remain in limbo. In a social media post, Trump said the crushing economic operation will be a, quote, economic D-Day for Iran. He also threatened consequences for any country that provides any type of lifeline to Tehran. Earlier yesterday, Mr. Trump warned of very draconian sanctions.
We're going to see what happens. It'll either be extremely good and oil prices are going to drop like a rock, or we'll continue to do exactly what we're doing.
CBS News White House reporter Aaron Navarro joins us now. So, Aaron, let's talk about this economic D-Day. What does it actually mean, and how is Iran responding?
Well, there are many details still lacking, Vlad, when it comes to the exacts of this proposed economic D-Day, but it does tie into the administration's goal to put more economic pressure on Iran to get them to buckle in terms of negotiations or reopen the strait, though it's an open question on if they will actually reach that breaking point. While there are decades now of U.S. sanctions on Iran, in addition to Trump's blockade of Iranian oil ports, this latest announcement threatens actions against countries that do business with Iran, that give a, quote, lifeline to Iran at this time, according to the president's words. This could include China, who does buy a lot of oil from Tehran, but that could also risk U.S. confrontation with China ahead of their president, Xi Jinping, coming to the U.S. in September. These measures of an economic D-Day could also include cracking down on countries that help facilitate the actual retrieval of revenue that Iran gets from oil. You saw the Treasury Department signal and announce moves related to that earlier this month. Now, Iran, despite the high inflation, food inflation about 100% at this point, has showed that they will not buckle to this economic pressure. Iran's foreign minister posted that these measures from the U.S., or at least threat of them, are a diversion from America's own crisis, unprecedented debt and surging interest costs, a reference to reports that the U.S. national debt has crossed over $40 trillion. Another advisor to Iran's supreme leader said earlier this week that both, quote, military pressure and sanctions would not break Iran's resolve.
And Aaron, while we have you, President Trump has also been turning his focus to North Korea. He now says he's going to meet with Kim Jong-un later this year. What do we know there?
That could potentially happen in China later this fall, when the president's expected to attend the APEC summit there. But the White House nor North Korea has confirmed those are the actual plans for this meeting. The president has seemed to want to restart efforts to get dictator Kim Jong-un to abandon the nuclear program in North Korea, and yesterday gave some details on how many actual weapons the U.S. believes North Korea has. Take a listen to him talking to reporters.
I get along with him. And you know what? The fact that I get along with him, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. He has 57 very powerful nuclear weapons. Should have never allowed it to happen. They should have never allowed it.
South Korea's defense minister said he believes that number is closer to 80 to 120 weapons. But this announcement from the president also comes after he said that the U.S. will scale back the number of U.S. forces participating in joint military drills with South Korea. He also shared a couple of pictures of him and Kim Jong-un on Truth Social over the weekend.
All right, Aaron, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
For more on this, we're joined now by CBS News national security analyst Aaron MacLean. He's also the host of the School of War podcast. So good to see you, Aaron. So I want to stay on this topic of North Korea. I mean, the president met with North Korea's leader 3 times in his first term, didn't achieve a substantive result on denuclearization. Do you think Pyongyang would be able to get to something here? They'd be willing to play ball this time around?
In terms of meaningful denuclearization, I think the short answer is it's very unlikely. The longer answer is that the president looks back on his diplomacy with North Korea in the first term with a good deal of nostalgia. I think it's easy to forget how close we were to war with North Korea in 2017 and 2018. Those are the days of fire and fury and very intense rhetoric that then resolved in a series of meetings and exchanges, warm feelings, a lot of good visuals. I think President Trump naturally looks to moments like that kind of as the sort of thing he hopes would happen with Iran. But he's being denied that sort of outcome on Iran, substance-free, essentially, as it was back with North Korea. And he'd like to kind of get the band back together again.
So this all comes after the U.S. and South Korea agreed to cut short their joint military exercises at the president's direction, simply because the South Koreans do not want to be entangled in this war of choice with Iran that the United States is now involved in. But I guess the question is, what is the larger message that this sends the region, and what implication could it have?
Yeah, the U.S.-South Korea relationship is very complicated. And one of the strange twists here is that the South Korean government at this moment is actually pretty dovish towards Pyongyang. So the South Korean government on its own has taken steps to reduce tensions with the North. But that hasn't prevented the introduction of this major tension between the United States and South Korea since the president's social media message on Sunday. We still don't know, by the way, what actually sparked that message. Was it a desire? This was the post, of course, where he announced the reduction of American participation in the exercise. Was it the president simply trying to change the subject? Was it, we might speculate, some consequence of talks with the North Koreans that are already occurring on some level? Was it something that happened in the U.S.-South Korea relationship that upset the White House? We don't know the answer to that question. This did kind of come out of nowhere. And as ever, it shows that the president is very flexible on his approach to allies. They can't really rely on as much from him as they would from others.
And Aaron, you probably heard the other Aaron talking about this. The president, when we're talking about Iran, has announced a, quote, crushing economic operation, calling it, excuse me, an economic D-Day. It was swallowed wrong there. What do you think this means? Because we've heard this before. We know that Iran is under economic pressure, and they don't seem to have really bent the knee, if you will.
Yeah, the double-barreled Aaron is always a good way to start the hour, guys. This comes down to the leverage that the United States potentially has on other countries that do business with Iran. We can always go to them and say, look, you have to choose. You do more business with Iran or you do business with the United States. And so there's any number of ways in which that can play out in terms of sanctions, in terms of tariffs, in terms of punitive measures. But as Aaron Navarro pointed out, when it comes to China, such an approach involves pain here in the United States and economic costs to us. So the question following the president's social media message is, how far does he in practice intend to go in terms of operationalizing this? The more pain he's willing to assume and the more pain introduced into these economic relationships with countries like China, he can impose meaningful costs on the Iranians. The problem he faces there is that economic warfare is a long game. This is not, even in its most aggressive iterations, not going to be a matter of days and weeks. This is months and months, potentially more.
And we keep spending, and our own national debt continues to increase.
Rise.
All right, Aaron, thank you so much for your time.